So what does this mean for the rest of the 49ers offense? Brock Purdy, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey's easy. We're starting him, but everybody else is kind of up in the air right now. So taking on Seattle on Thursday night, what are your expectations?
My expectations are low. I don't expect a ton from George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk, but they're guys who have made plays. There's a chance that they can be okay for fantasy purposes, so don't mind starting them, especially in the case of Kittle, where there are so few tight ends that you can feel good about. I think the guy on the 49ers that'll end up replacing Deebo on the field is Ray McCloud. I do not want to add Ray McCloud to my fantasy teams. I'm thinking that this is more about Purdy as a 2 QB quarterback only. And then you've got the rest of the guys as fringe starters except for McCaffrey and Kittle.
Yeah, I think it's easy to look at it and think, well, now there's not too many mouths to feed because Deebo's gone, but the pie has shrunk since Purdy's taken over. They've thrown for 395 yards in the last 2 weeks combined. There still might be too many mouths to feed, considering that Christian McCaffrey is going to take more than his fair share.
It could help, honestly, Jordan Mason the most,
right,
because they might just decide to run the ball a lot. But I mean, let's give Purdy credit. He's got 18 points in each of the 2 games, and he's looked really good against the Bucs, and that's a much tougher opponent than he's facing this week. So I kind of like it for Kittle a little bit because I think we'll see maybe an uptick in targets, and this isn't going to be a pass rush that's going to be a problem for them.
He got a lot of targets early last week. That's an encouraging sign.
And he got a lot of targets, or a good amount of targets when Purdy stepped in for Garoppolo 2 games before. So I think he'll benefit the most, but Ayuk, we'll see how things go there for him. And if the Seattle offense shows up and the 49ers defense, for whatever reason, doesn't, then maybe Purdy's throwing a little bit more, and these guys do benefit. In that same game, again, we might see Kenneth Walker playing Thursday night for the Seahawks, getting a limited designation. Remember, it's not a full practice for them on Monday, but they have the short week, so they have to give an injury report. And I think the positive side of this is that he got a limited designation. DJ Dallas got the DNP, so he may not be returning. Now, Travis Homer played 91% of the snaps. Tony Jones was the second guy in. So Kenneth Walker, if he returns, he's what?
He's not going to be a top 12 running back like I've been ranking him for the last couple of months. I think he would be closer to RB24, a low-end number 2 option. This is an absolutely dreadful matchup. We don't know for sure that he will be at 100%. I would view Walker as probably a start as a number 2, but we also have to remember he's had some terribly inefficient games. Had just 43 yards in his last 2 games combined before this injury. So there is a very low floor, but probably starting him as a number 2.
And then Travis Homer, if he's out, would be what?
A number 3 running back at the very, very best. Right around RB 30, 36, somewhere in that range. I still don't think he gets more than 10 carries.
He's barely in my top 48. That's with no ranking Kenneth Walker right now. It just was ugly performance against the Panthers, and this is a much tougher defense. All right, Dave, let's talk about the Dolphins here. So Tyreek Hill, according to Mike McDaniel, avoided anything serious, so just bumps and bruises should be okay. Jeff Wilson, though, dealing with the hip injury, considered day-to-day. So we're starting, obviously, Tyreek Hill if he plays. We're starting Jalen Waddle, I think. Where you at with Tua Tagovailoa, though, with the banged-up Tyreek Hill and Waddle struggling the last few weeks, and Tua not looking the best the last couple of games.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly, and now he's taking on Buffalo. I don't love Tua this week. He's still going to be a top 12 quarterback by default. He's got that upside because he's got Tyreek Hill and he's got Jalen Waddle, but I'm not as excited about him as I was, say, a week ago or 2 weeks ago when he was playing better. I'm nervous to use him as anything more than a low-end starter.
And then in terms of the backfield, Heath, when you look at Mostert and Jeff Wilson, what's your expectation?
If they're both playing, they're both going to be high-end flexes. If Mostert's the only guy, then he's a borderline number 2 running back. I would still have concern that he's not going to have very much success just because of how good that Buffalo defense can be.
They've been awful running the ball the last 2 games. They didn't even try against San Francisco 2 games ago. 8 carries for those 2 guys. Wilson got hurt against the Chargers, and Mostert didn't do very much, but maybe just the opportunity to be the guy could help Raheem Mostert in his matchup against Buffalo. But again, it's a very tough defense. There could be a lot of snow as well. There's reportedly potential for up to 7 inches of snow in Buffalo, and that could be on the mild side depending on how things go for the weather report. All right, Dave. So, Dave, we'll go with the Houston backfield here. So, Dameon Pierce dealing with the ankle injury. Lovie Smith not sure what his status is going to be. If he's out, Rex Burkhead, Dario Ogunbowale, they did just cut Eno Benjamin, so that could be a good sign for Dameon Pierce. But assuming that it's those 2 guys, Burkhead and Ogunbowale, what are your thoughts?
It's a lot of letters in those last names. I think that Burkhead is the one that you would want. I'm using want, loosely here because it's Houston's offense. They're not going to be good. Yeah, I know. Poor guy over here thinking about starting Rex Burkhead. Desperation play that you can get off the waiver wire. That's as good as it gets for Burkhead. Ogunbowale is the 3rd down guy, the passing downs guy. Might be decent in PPR. And decency, not even the right word. You'd have to be desperate to go after Ogunbowale at running back in a full PPR league.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that could maybe help him is they're going to be chasing points against Kansas City, although we would have said the same thing against the Cowboys, and we saw the offense actually show up. Now you have Jeff Driscoll running the ball as well, so that could be another factor here, how these things are are shaping up, and so who knows, they could also bring somebody else in to replace, Benjamin. But hopefully Dameon Pierce will be fine. But if not, these are the two options for you, and we'll show you where they stack up when we look at the waiver wire options a little bit later in the show. Keith, you good?
Well, I'm trying.
All right, let's talk about the Bengals passing game here. So T. Higgins considered day-to-day. Tyler Boyd, according to at least one report in the NFL Network, that he's going to miss potentially 1 to 2 weeks, so probably not going to have him for Week 15 as the Bengals take on the Bucs. So, A, Joe Burrow. Can you trust him if there is no Higgins and no Boyd taking on a good Bucs defense, but clearly not the same Bucs defense that we've seen the majority of the season? And then B, is there anybody else in the offense that you would pivot to aside from Jamar Chase?
Really, the only one would be if somehow Hayden Hurst came back. I think there'll be more targets for the running backs. I don't want to start either of the Trents or the Trenton. Stanley Morgan, not those guys. Jamar Chase is a top 5 wide receiver. If we get Hurst back, then he'd be a top 10 tight end. Burrow, I can't get out of my top 10. Like we talked about dropping to a low-end starting quarterback in the top 12, Burrow will still be ahead of him, even if it's just Chase.
It may help Samaje Perine, would be a little bit more creative there and how they do things. Now, Trent Irwin has had some moments lately, but again, tough to trust.
He basically replaced T. Higgins last week. He was the outside receiver for them.
Yeah, and we'll see, how they decide to operate if there is no Higgins, is no Boyd, but hopefully Higgins can get through this hamstring injury and be okay. The Carolina offense is hoping to get DJ Moore back, and we know it's been a frustrating season for him, but got hurt late in the game against Seattle, but according to all reports, just a minor knee injury that he's dealing with. In the unlikely event, Heath, that he is out, would you pivot to anybody in the Carolina offense?
Laviska Shenault will be my favorite, but he would not be a top 40 wide receiver. So it's a desperation flex, kind of in the Rex Burkhead situation.
They've just been running the ball so well.
So
It's hard to get away from what the run game looks like. It's like how we've talked about Washington lately, how kind of the Dallas backfield looks like. They're getting multiple guys getting production. So it's becoming a rushing offense, and clearly that's good for Deontay Foreman and Chuba Hubbard, for two guys that you could use as at least flex options, even in a tough matchup against Pittsburgh. The Cowboys got a new receiver, Dave, so T.Y. Hilton joining the fold. It wasn't Odell Beckham. And so I think a lot of people are going to say, do you pick up T.Y. Hilton? Maybe not for this week because it could take him some time to learn the offense, but for the stretch run. And what does his signing mean for the guys there? CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Noah Brown's coming off a strong game, Dalton Schultz. Is there going to be a problem here with targets for this Cowboys offense because they're not throwing the ball a lot?
I don't think it'll be a huge target problem. Let's put it this way. I don't think T.Y. Hilton is going to create a huge target problem. I think the bigger issue is what you just talked about. They're able to run the ball very effectively. That could be where the target drain sets in. I don't expect T.Y. Hilton to bounce back to what we saw from him in like 2017 or anything. It's been a long time since T.Y. Hilton has been great for fantasy purposes. He might stretch the field a little bit for Dallas, but that's going to be about it. I think it'll help the underneath guys, Lamb, Schultz, and Gallup more.
1 week too late. They just played the Texans. It could have been fantastic.
Oh, that's right.
Could have been fantastic, but
that is right.
No interest.
Maybe that's what they were thinking. They were trying to get him in, couldn't work out a deal, and then he doesn't get to beat up on the team that he typically beats up on. Heath, the Bills are adding Cole Beasley to their practice squad, but you know what that means when they had a veteran like this. He's probably going to play at some point, may even be in Week 15. This is, I'm sure, an indication more of the Isaiah McKenzie, John Brown, scenario that they've been trying to work through. I hope it's not an indication of Gabe Davis and the struggles that he's had. But Beasley clearly familiar with this offense. He's had some very good moments for fantasy managers over the last couple of seasons. A, any interest in him, and B, what does this mean for the non-Stephon Diggs receivers in Buffalo?
I think it could absolutely crush the hope you would have for Isaiah McKenzie or Dawson Knox if he becomes a full-time player. I do not know if there is a player in the NFL less similar to Gabe Davis's role than Cole Beasley's role, so I don't think he'll have any impact on him.
Based on the routes that we've seen Gabe Davis run, this hasn't been pretty for what the expectations were.
Right, for sure. But yeah, if I was holding out hope for McKenzie or Dawson Knox, if Beasley's active, that hope would be gone.
Deepest of leagues, 16-team league, you had to pick up Beasley or Hilton. Who would it be?
Beasley.
Okay, so there you go. I hope it's Beasley, but if you have to rely on T.Y. Hilton.
Is that who you're down to in your deep leagues?
No, thankfully not. But, hey, some people are desperate.
There might be some Rams receivers that are better than those.
There might be, but those guys could be rostered. Let's talk about the Jets quarterback situation. So Mike White, according to Robert Saleh, will be the starter if he's healthy, but dealing with the rib injury. What are your expectations for Mike White taking on Detroit? It's a great matchup, but he's kind of tailed off a little bit. Some of it's been production. Some of it has been the teams that he's facing.
Right.
He goes back home against Detroit. It's going to be a good week for him.
I think it is going to be a good week for him because that Lions defense, while they are getting better and their pass rush is getting stronger, their secondary is still such a mess, and you saw Kirk Cousins take advantage of that last week. I think it's Mike White's turn to do exactly the same thing. He is a top 12 quarterback for me this week. 300
yards, hopefully 2 touchdowns. The touchdowns will be the problem. I think he's going to throw it 40, 45 plus times. It'll be a shootout, hopefully, but and it's fantastic for Garrett Wilson, but you worry a little bit about the touchdowns because he only has 1 game with a touchdown this season.
So the guys besides Garrett Wilson, you got Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, we don't know his status, dealing with a concussion, and Tyler Conklin's coming off, as you see here, 8 targets. So do you like these guys as well, Heath?
Conklin is a borderline top 12 tight end, lives in that 10 to 15 range, depending on who we get and how healthy everybody is. I think Elijah Moore is in the DJ Moore range, right around wide receiver 40. Not a bad boom-bust flex option if you're looking for that, but not much floor at all.
He might be a little bit better than DJ Moore this week, if you can believe that. Last week, he played almost 70% of his snaps in the slot. In fact, that's been his rate over his last 2 games, and obviously the targets went way up as soon as Corey Davis went out. Davis has to not play. If Davis plays, then that's going to hurt Elijah Moore. But Detroit's dead last in defensive EPA against slot receivers, not just in the last 3 weeks, but on the season. So it's a great matchup for Moore if there's no Corey Davis. Don't mind making a play to get him off the waiver wire this week.
And Denzel Mims could also benefit. He had 5 targets as well, mostly after Corey Davis left, so we'll see what happens there. Just keep in mind, Elijah Moore, first game with Mike White, scored the touchdown, disappeared the second game, had a big performance the third game, so Corey Davis' absence could certainly swing how that goes. And then we have the new quarterback in Atlanta, Desmond Ridder, starting for the Falcons, and the Falcons are going to place Marcus Mariota on injured reserve, so he's going to be done for the rest of the season. So Heath, what do you like about Desmond Ridder? Dave said that he could be a good 2 QB option. Do you feel the same way against Saints?
I'm pretty skeptical. I think generally if you look at a mediocre veteran quarterback and a rookie, especially a third-round pick, playing on the same team, I would expect the mediocre veteran to be better than the third-round rookie. So I do not have the same confidence that he does. He's not in my top 24 quarterbacks this week.
The confidence is in relation to Colt McCoy, for the record. I don't think that I'm racing to go get
Yeah.
Desmond
I'd
Ridder
much
and start
rather
him in a
start
2-quarterback league. You'd rather start McCoy?
For sure.
I'll take the devil I don't know in Desmond Ridder just because he hasn't played. We don't know how much progress he's made since his days in Cincinnati. He will run with the ball a little bit, so that'll help provide that fantasy floor.
And that's what Mariota was doing, and Ridder did have 58 yards rushing in his 3 preseason appearances, obviously not full games, so we'll see how much that carries over. And then does it change anything in terms of the weapons in Atlanta?
You can hope that it means that they want to really focus on the young guys and they're going to force feed double-digit targets to Drake London every week. I'm not ranking him like that's the case, but if that happens this week, then I think you look at London as a top 30 wide receiver.
His best game was his last game before their bye week, and so hopefully he can build off that performance. But in the 2 games without Kyle Pitts, Zacchaeus had 1 good game, London had 1 good game, they came with Marcus Mariota. So we'll see how things change there for the Falcons passing attack.